Hi, this is Mike Flynn. Welcome to Podcast 45. It is Friday, the 22nd. And I guess the first order of business is the two games that went on last night. The big one being the rivalry or the return of the rivalry with UConn and Tennessee. And I was doing some work and I got a text saying, hey, watch the upset. And I'm like, upset? Saw it, like, okay, turned it on. UConn's up. Well, then I learned earlier that Tennessee was up. And the game's at Tennessee. And then, so I watched, and, game got close at the end. Paige Buchers was Paige, like in her three from the left-hand side. That's what she does. And they get the lead and, they win. But everybody says, oh, Tennessee won, came back. It's COVID year, but guess what? It's probably a Tennessee victory too. So both teams won. For Tennessee, it's wish we could have, but last year when they played, it was a close game. It ended up being 60-45. This time it wasn't a blowout. And if anybody understands the history of playing UConn and you're playing a power team, they don't like the score to be close, especially with rivals that they have to recruit against. So that's why it's probably a win-win. But records are going to be intriguing because at the end, you're going to have both probably teams in the Final Four women's bubble, because I can't see them not making it. And then also you have to look at, are teams even going to have conference championships? Because the word I'm hearing is that they're still going to do the same things, take at-larges, take conference winners. But the difference is they may not take conference tournament winners. They may take the conference regular season winners. That would be intriguing because some people, they needed that help to be that fifth or sixth team from a power division to get in, or a power conference to get in. And I think that's going to be a difference this year, is that they may just go straight record, and that'll be interesting. Other big game, Syracuse, Louisville. Number one Louisville, 12-0. Really good game. Louisville's just, should I give Jeff Walz his kudos now that he's like America's coach or the best coach in America or something like that? I thought that's a compliment. But it was a good night for two women's doubleheaders. It's intriguing that the first game was on ESPN, the other one was on the Deuce. And then closing, it's kind of also interesting talking about Coach Auriemma. He had some comments on top of what Kim Mulkey was talking about, how after they lost to Iowa State when Baylor took the L, she was upset and said, oh, we're playing these games for the almighty dollar in the NCAA. And Gino came back with, well, you're getting paid, and I guess we are playing for the dollar. So I thought that was intriguing because both of them were right. Depends on what your perspective is. And I guess we'll now get on to some other things that have come up. Sort of, I didn't say catch me by surprise, but surprise to me was that the new president put out an executive order saying that transgender athletes have the right to compete regardless of their identification. Don't hold me to the word. Not going to be a lawyer on that. Not going to be even a Philadelphia lawyer on that one. But I can tell you, is that going to be a big deal for basketball? No, it won't be a big deal. Maybe when you get to USA national team, pro, international, that's the only time you ever hear it talked about. And especially in youth basketball, if it's spoken about, it's usually a bunch of mean people being mean for lack of knowledge and information. So it's for society to figure out. Again, basketball is about opportunity. And if they want to try to figure out who's getting it, I'll let other people have that decision. But that was a big one. And not get out there from a political standpoint, that's going to be a big deal. Quite surprised, but then I saw they made a transgender at the Department of Health hire for the new administration. And I was like, oh, maybe that's where it came from. Don't know. It doesn't affect this space whatsoever. And if there's an issue, parents will bring it up. Schools and governmental institutions will have to figure that one out. Some other interesting things, talking about UConn again. Gino Auriemma was talking about reaction of when Kim Mulkey, Baylor lost Iowa State. Kim said it was about the almighty dollar. Gino came back, obviously, because he's a favorite to always have a good quote, if not in his back pocket, at his fingertips. So he says, hey, we're coaching for money. So what's the difference, or what's the issue? It's kind of funny, but they're both right. I think that was the point of it. The other one is there was a story that talked out about in SI, observed that with the balance of power in Washington, D.C. having now officially shifted, the NCAA is now facing a stark reality. The very same lawmakers that asked for help are now, having thoroughly examined the NIL issue, proposing sweeping changes to its amateurism system. Yeah, and that's going to be important because every type of rule that the NCAA or coaches or anybody wants to construct is now going to come through the prism of a legal and governmental battle, because it's no longer about what the coaches want. It's what's best for the athletes. That includes high school athletes. If the coaches are going to change recruiting rules, etc., it's going to be pretty hard because parents are going to weigh in to people in Congress and say, hey, is this really fair? And why that's going to be a discussion. It won't be a discussion this podcast. Will be in the future, because when we get to later in the month, everybody's going to have to figure out what's coming in this summer. And I have some ideas about what it'll look like. Obviously, power coaches and others will have some other ideas. Athletic directors will have another idea. It's going to be all on the table. But this was intriguing because if anything's going to happen, this will layer into the conversation coming in March and April, which I see dragging out to June. Democrats are pursuing federal legislation that presents revolutionary changes to the college sports landscape. Oh, yeah. And they are confident about its passage. This is Cory Booker, and he says that any legislation fundamentally includes other aspects of an athlete's Bill of Rights. All these things have to be addressed. And in a 50-50 Senate, I'm confident that, quote, we'll do everything we can to make reforms comprehensive reforms. Wow. That's a battle cry by congressmen who know the parents, went to school with, hang out with former collegiate athletes who know how they felt, and they got kids, and if they don't have them, they're going to have them. And they're saying, wait a minute, yeah, we're going to make a statement. A year ago, it seemed like an endpoint. Complicating matters further, it may take a while before Congress gets around to addressing NIL issues, which Sports Illustrated points out, quote, could put the NCAA on a collision course with the state of Florida, whose state NIL law takes effect this July. That means that Supreme Court case may not get there as pronto, as fast as they think. And another big one, and another issue is that, and this is important because I remember must have been like 3.5, 4 years ago, the front page of the the Chronicle of Higher Education, which is the major publication for collegiate administrators and things of that nature. And they had a thing that noted what is the mark of the mental health crisis on campus. And to be truthful, I was kind of shocked because I was like, these numbers are a little bit out of control. And to tell you, they were out of control, but they were really factual. September 4th, 2015, 5 years ago. And if you can see this, you'll see that list up there. I just put on the screen, and that will tell you. And that was 5 years ago. And now with COVID, 58% of campuses have seen a rise in anxiety disorder. 89% of campuses have seen a rise in clinical depression. And I'll stop at those two. When I first saw this, I was like, really? Really? I said, this is, I mean, you know, if you're on the move, doing things, playing things out, you're like, wow, you know, what's going on? And I know, people are leaving from their home going to college, but I was quite surprised at the number, and that's 2015. That was the front page. So that told you that was a pretty big deal. And it's been discussed. But now that we have COVID, I've seen it firsthand. I get it. I'm an advocate for as much resources being put into that as possible. And it's a real tough, because in an American culture, you're told not to be like that, but at the same time you do. So you've got this dynamic going back and forth. It makes Republican, Democrat look weak, but it's out there. And the reason I mention this is that even this week's Sports Business Journal, it's returned to publication, they had a treasure trove of stuff. And one of the most intriguing is not one, but they had 2 articles on mental health. One about its own workers within the television sphere, another one about, I think, athletes. And I was quite taken back by it, to be truthful. And I said, wow, this is quite unusual, because, I mean, Sports Illustrated really never goes down that road. Well, they did. And that's why I mention it, because this is another article. Meanwhile, the Athletics Jennings speaks with several women's basketball stakeholders about their thoughts on playing through the pandemic at this point in the season. So this ties in with everything we talked about. You know, said the Power 5 and Big East, they've experienced COVID. You know, one coach says, speaking from a Power 6 perspective, the resource that we have, it's been incredible. Testing protocols, been all put in place, but obviously we can't do a true bubble. So outside of that, I think we've done an amazing job. The reason is because they have a controlled situation. The mental health, some of it they're not talking about, is that when the kids get done playing sports, and I've seen it, as soon as they finish, within 2 to 3 years, if not maybe sooner, they don't have that structure, they don't have that support system, they don't have all that help. Guess what? It's like, hey, you're on your own. You know, the old, stuff in the old days used to say, hey, you're on your own. Well, today there's a lot of support. Well, that support's pulled out from you because you're done. It'll be interesting if Cory Booker brings on mental health and physical health if you're playing a sport. Requirements for athletes after they exit college till they're like, what, 30? I mean, that would be a substantial thing if Senator Booker and the other senators added that to their desires to help. This is another Power 6 assistant coach notes, the thing that I'm most concerned about is the mental health with a lot of our young people and also our coaching staff, just because it's not a regular routine. It's a lot of uncertainty, and unfortunately, it's putting a lot of people in different positions they aren't expected to be in. And there you go. And that's the surprising, but we're going to see that more and more, and because it's a factor. The big thing that I'm getting now is a lot of high school parents are calling saying, hey, we're not going to have a season, or we're not going to play at all, or we're going to have like 15 games. Our coach is going to pay attention. And then everybody's like getting anxiety about, oh, well, the coach is going to come out, or how they're going to see me, or whatever. And we'll save some of this for another episode, and probably create an outline and devote a lot of this stuff to it. And I think that will probably be a widely watched one, because it'll involve the college coaching community, and the parents, who have kids playing this. And if you have an A-type player, an A-type person, person who's like really works hard, trains hard, focused, they have a goal. If you take the goal away, or you take away their pathway to a goal, that can lead to uncertainty. Uncertainty leads to doubt. Doubt leads to anxiety, and then you get other things on top of that. Why I'm saying all this, because we're going to be faced with a lot of issues that for some are like, oh, we'll deal with it, and others will be like, well, okay, and they're going to have to mask and hide a lot of the uncertainty and anxiety about what's going to happen with the sport of girls basketball in terms of scholarships, opportunity to play, etc. So I'm going to finish this off. It's a quick one, fast one. And again, NIL has, and I talk about it all the time, have been talking about it. Now we're going to see where the NIL and the package of what happens is going to layer in physical health insurance, physical health monitoring, mental health monitoring, mental health support. And that's going to be for the collegiate athletes who get scholarships. And nobody's even talked about the Olympic sports. Nobody's even talked about what happens if football pulls away, what's going to happen to women's basketball and all that. And where's the NBA and the WNBA sit? And what's happening? There's like a gazillion questions that I could bring up here and talk for 2 to 3 hours. Maybe if I was on a live stream with people commenting, maybe that could happen. But, that's for the future. Looking to do some more, like I said, unique things with this podcast here on YouTube. If you get a chance, subscribe. If you want, I don't care. But if you want to, do so. And if you want to hit just check off that bell, guess what? You'll know when I do one of these instead of waiting for me to post something. Because word of mouth, I think probably in another week or two, we're going to start up in the numbers of this, because it's going to be an opportunity for people to do this, watch this, or listen to it when they want, along with Apple and Spotify, and with Periscope ending in March. I have to make sure that I get a lot of that content off of there and saved. I can tell you it's going to be an interesting year. College basketball is going. A lot of basketball in this region starting. Basketball in other regions is going on like it's no business. People are in gyms. People are packed in some other places. Others, it's like you got to lie about where you're coming from. It's just a madhouse. And again, uncertainty helps lead you down that road to doubt, and doubt is anxiety, because there's no solutions or answers. So be aware when you deal with your fellow human beings that we're in COVID times, and it's not going away just because somebody gets a vaccine in their arm. It's kind of intriguing, but there are people not expecting people to be out in public, in movie houses, etc., until like November. And I was kind of surprised. Even if you go online, you can look at when all the movies are supposed to come out back into theaters. Some people were talking summer. Now it's going to be October, November, December. And as things come on, a lot of NCAA administrators are going to sit and wait and see what's important. Because like I said, numero uno, get the students back in campus on the fall. Number 2, get the athletes back on campus for the fall. Which means if you're in football, you're coming back maybe July 15, August 1st. If you're a female player, you're coming back August 1st, August 15 for basketball. So at that point, what's going to happen, what could happen, what's available to happen. We'll save that for later. But like I said, if I'm an administrator, the number one priority this winter has been to play the football championships. Priority number 2 is to have the basketball championships. Priority number 3 is going to be get everybody back on campus ready to rock and roll like there was no COVID. We can get back to normal because that's where the money is. So there we go. We tied it all up. And see in a few days, unless something comes out like the game or the presidential release or the Power 5 stuff, we'll try to keep everybody informed. Because if I'm not mistaken, nobody else is doing it. Newspapers are even gone. So thanks, everybody.